Okay. All right, welcome everybody to Wise Women Wednesday. I'm Stevie Carr, founder and CEO of Wise Wellness Guild. As you know, every Wednesday we have a different touch point for members of our community as well as members at large that are coming into our community to help support the advancement of women through whole self wellness. Today we have Shelly Boggs. She is the founder and owner of Equilibrium Wellbeing. It's based out of Baltimore, but Shelly and I have a long past together. We've known each other for quite a few years, and she is backed by popular demand. She is one of the first women that jumped in and really did some of this online programming with us at the beginning of COVID, and I've been having a lot of people request for her to come back and share. All of this month, Wise, Shelly from Equilibrium, as well as Crunchmaster Crackers and Snacks are partnering to deliver a series called Break 30. It is all about 30 days of investing in yourself into a new habit and looking at how you can invest 30 minutes a day in self-care in order for you to achieve the best version of yourself. And Shelly has background in functional medicine. She's a certified coach as well as a yoga instructor. She is just the epitome of wellness in my eyes. And I'm so thrilled that she's here with us today because I wanted her to share just a little bit more about how this partnership came to be, why we decided to really lean in on the 30 days of content, and what we've all kind of learned through COVID, that I think how we can really start to invest in ourselves for at least 30 minutes a day can really make a huge difference for us. The really cool part about this is if you sign up on our portal, it's completely free. If you sign up for the challenge, at the end of it, if you finish the challenge, you'll receive a Crunchmaster gift pack as well as a discount towards coaching services from Equilibrium Wellbeing. So Shelly, thank you so much for joining us today. I thought that today would just be a little bit of a hit the highlights on what we've been doing and then set it up for discussion. As a group, we really haven't come together a whole lot to be able to just have an open forum like we were just talking before. Then having Shelly and being able to bounce some ideas off of her and ask her and all of her wisdom and knowledge, I thought would be really beneficial. So Shelly, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's such a delight. I mean, I vibrate, I think, when I get around Stevie. It's just really nice. There are people in your life that are just these positive portals, and Stevie is one of those people for me. So I'm just really thrilled to be here and connect. And I think that's kind of the basis of the partnership too, is just that connection and that recognition. We've always had this kind of shared understanding of the world. And I think that that's what makes this really wonderful. I remember when she launched the Wise Wellness Guild, I was like, oh, she beat me to it. I was so elated for her and just so inspired by her. So I was really delighted when Stevie tapped me to say, hey, let's figure something out to do together. And this just kind of came to be. And I think strictly because of what we're going through right now, stress is a constant in our lives by and large all the time anyway. Lay a pandemic on top of that, and it's like you've dialed that up to 11. So I know in my own coaching practice and as a yoga teacher, I'm one of the first things I hear from people is stress. What can I help you with? It's always stress. They never want to talk about their eating habits. They don't want to talk about it. They want to talk about stress levels because it's so palpable in their lives. They feel as though it is a heavy weight. It's on them. I deal mostly with women, oddly enough, in the perimenopausal to menopausal range. So layer that on top of it, and it is just this hairy ball that needs to be dealt with. So it's kind of where I've dove deep in my life to counter my own anxiety and stress issues, and kind of the successes that I've had and the things that I've tried and the strategies that I've used to address my stress is really how I go about helping my clients address theirs. And I have this I just delight in having this broad spectrum experience. As a yoga instructor, I'm really able to help people with their bodies and their breath work and understanding on an energetic level what this does to us. And then as a certified personal trainer, I also understand like the physiology of it as well. So it's really interesting to see all these things come together in one giant crossroads. So that the Stress Less Challenge, I think, is wonderful for that very reason. So we could take a month and really just dedicate ourselves to what can we do to lessen this load in our lives? And what can we do to also accept the fact that taking 30 minutes from our day is not robbing time from our schedule? Because when we're doing something for ourselves, when we fill our cup, then we're better able to serve the people in our lives. You can't drink from an empty well is something that I think Stevie wrote in a newsletter. And I think I used that the entire week in my yoga classes that week, because I was just like, oh my God, that's so right. You know, self-care needs to be a priority right now. And if we can't find 30 minutes in our calendars every day to do something that nourishes us and sustains us, then we really need to rethink our calendar. So the whole idea, this whole challenge, we're theming it each week. And this first week is all about rest. So the idea of what can we do to find better sleep in our lives? Because if you're not sleeping, you're not going to be able to deal with your stress level. And that's also something that I see in women so often. You know, sleep is one of those top priority issues. So what are the little things we can do to better our sleep? And it's so funny because these are little smart things that you can do that we kind of all know, but we don't address it. So having that consistency of practice, I think, is a wonderful idea. And then 30 days for the challenge. I mean, you get to dip your toe and finger in every little possible solution that you could try or maybe have not tried before, and maybe walk away with something that really works for you. Because, you know, my clients ask me all the time, Shelly, what do you do to deal with stress? And I'm like, that's a great question. And I love it. But I'm cautious about how I answer that question, because what works for me may or may not work for you. We're all biologically different. You know, genetics is one thing, and then pile life experience and anything else on top of that. And your triggers might be different than mine. So working together and understanding what really works for you is the way to go when it deals with stress. And it's kind of like emotional spelunking, right? You have to kind of go and figure it out. We learn by doing as human beings. That's what we do. So here's an opportunity to learn what works best for you and how you can best manage your stress.
I love that. And I think that there's a lot of layers into how this comes naturally to us, right? You have to be mindful enough in the moment to understand that you're even experiencing something. Nori put in here around like the, about things going on and like challenges in life kind of going so fast. And I think that if we're just existing and letting life kind of take us like a paper bag in wind, right? If we aren't tethered to something, that's really the mindfulness piece of being able to say, hey, I'm creating space and boundaries around myself to be able to give myself this space. And I think that when we are moving so fast, I've just found that putting time on the calendar is just a very easy way to do that. And that's why I like the concept of the 30 minutes of, at nighttime, putting it on my calendar, like right before I go to bed. And, I'm not perfect at it by any stretch. I mean, it's definitely been really interesting with kind of getting into a new routine. But I think that as so many of us are managing back to school, who are managing, time in transition into fall, there's a lot. I know Loris was talking about, coming back from the lake and like even just waking up to an empty house, I think is a different feeling. And so how do you get back into a groove a little bit and at least give yourself the gift of consistency in that space?
Yeah. I love that. The schedule is something that I hear from clients a lot too. And it's funny because the schedule does create stress for ourselves, but we can use it as a tool to help manage it. So you're absolutely right. Creating a pocket in your day for when you're going to do something. I mean, literally on my calendar is workout in the morning. That is what is happening in this morning, because I know if I don't do it, I won't do it later in the day, and I'll be slightly off all the rest of the day if I don't. So I know I must schedule in that time for self-care for myself, or I'm not going to be of benefit to anyone else in my life. And you said something too that made me think. There's something about women wanting to be superheroes. I think it's kind of layered on us a lot. And it's self-layered. Like we take that on for ourselves. We go get the groceries, we get dinner ready, we all do all this, and we work. We take it on, and sometimes we fault ourselves for having stress in our lives. But the truth of it is, you're not going to get rid of the stress in your life. That's going to be there. That's a constant. And there are good stresses in our lives too. I mean, exercise is a good stress.
Yes.
We need to strengthen our ability to respond to the stress that we have. And that word respond, I think, is really the key, because what these practices do over time when you build the habit is you create a space between the stress that happens and how you react to it. And you slowly begin to shift to a field of response versus immediate reaction. You know, you're able to, like you said, take that time, recognize, oh, this is going on. I feel it in my body. What's happening? What do I need to do to counter it? What's the best tactic here? And then you move on. You know, and I'm not great at it either. You know, people think I am so calm all the time. My students are like, you're just so calm. You're such a calm source of influence. I'm like, yeah, sometimes there is a hurricane going on up here. And I gotta deal with that somehow. So, it's true of all of us, but I think the big thing too is for us to learn that it's okay to feel stressed. It's okay to ask for help around that. And it's okay to know that you need to take time for yourself to address that.
Yeah, and I love that. I remember when we were building the Stress Less Challenge, you automatically stepped in and corrected me because I think I wanted it to be like stress-free in 30 days. And you were like, okay, let's not overpromise. Like, that's actually not possible. And by the way, stress is good. Like, there are good stressors, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you can also reframe that to say that if you set yourself up for being completely carefree, stress-free, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we acknowledge that in our lives that there's going to be stressors that exist and that we take action and accountability for really more about our reaction to them and how we kind of set ourselves up to be resilient enough to manage what comes our way. Because I think that, you know, I had several conversations in the past week about I'm going to call them small things. In some people's lives, these are very big things. But so I will not call them small or big. I will correct myself and I will call them thoughts. So there are some people that are very concerned about Halloween and trick-or-treating and very concerned about what's going to happen, and that there's this thing tied to this moment of childhood that parents are worried that children are losing their childhood amidst COVID by everybody being so protective and so careful. And I think my response to it is, you know, having a 4-year-old, and yes, like I could absolutely see somebody's opinion on that, but I'm not exactly sure why we're stressed out about it on September 1st. Like, I'm just not really sure why we're putting ourselves in the position to focus so heavily on something like that so early on. And I keep coming back to, I think people are stressing about things that are outside of their control because the things that are within their control are really hard. Like, it's hard to make the decision to create space and boundaries. It's hard to say no. It's hard to make a decision and have to live with that decision with the guilt and the judgment and all of those things. And so I don't know, I've been just reflecting a lot on, you know, another incident that happened yesterday. This is very silly, but like the garbage person didn't take our garbage because our cleaning lady like put the garbage can like, or she emptied it and put it on top, and our like lid was open a little bit. And if we overfill it at all to teach us a lesson, they don't take our trash. Like, they do it right? It's like a hard lesson to learn. We didn't do it. The cleaning lady didn't know like she was doing it, but my husband was furious. He was like, oh, now where are we going to put all our trash? Like, he's like so upset about it. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, no one cares. Like, we'll just figure it out. And it's they come every week. Like, it's fine. Like, maybe we're throwing it. So I think that there's a little bit to this too of like, how do we also this month maybe learn to let go a little bit? And I think that as I'm being conscious about things that I'm putting in and my input, that Shelly is so graciously kind of helping me navigate through, I think I'm also finding a little bit of the humor in like, just people getting themselves so worked up about things that like are I don't know. I've been so complicit in that dialogue for so long about like feeding into the frenzy that I'm unsubscribing. And it's actually very freeing and joyful. Like, I'm very happy about it. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that, but I encourage you to like give less shits and like, and really just embrace like taking that mental energy capacity and putting it towards something that's productive for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could not agree more, and that's so absolutely true. When the older I get, the more I get interested and the more I believe that we're energetic beings and we can sense each other's energy. We know this. Our hearts have like an electromagnetic field that we can detect other people's emotions and sensitivities, and our nervous system talk to each other without us saying a word. I mean, it's fascinating when you start to dive into this world. And that you said energy is so important to me because it really is that. It's like people can get stressed out about being stressed out. And why would you do that to yourself? It's like you're compounding it. And I have conversations with myself all the time. It's like, okay, is this really a big issue to really be worried about? Can't you just divert that energy somewhere else that you can focus there? And one of the tools I use that I love, that I learned from somebody, and I can't remember who, some mentor along the way, they used to say, when you find yourself kind of getting that like slow simmer, you can feel your emotions starting to rise. You just go, oh, now this is happening. Isn't that interesting? And just give yourself that space. And that is, again, lengthening that space between reaction and turning it into response. It's like, oh, now this is happening. Okay. And then you can decide where to go from there.
What's your thought on self-awareness? And we talk a lot about this only because I do think that Laura has rooted me so much in the values. Whitney has rooted me in Enneagram. You've taught me so much about mindfulness and like just like paying attention to your body and like checking in with yourself. And I just, it's so interesting to me that I can have there's sometimes that as a 3 and understanding my triggers of like in feeling them coming and seeing them coming, that there are some times that I find so much joy in sometimes like seeing it happening coming and being able to actually control it, that it's brought me an immense amount of reprieve, I think, instead of the guilt that I feel when I like fly off the handle later. And I like react and I'm like so much all the shame, right? Because like you just feel that immense shame of like I really wish I wouldn't have yelled about that, or like that was, I dropped the ball on that because I procrastinated because I didn't want to do it. Well, guess what? Like I'm feeling guilty about something that I dropped the ball on that actually I set for myself. Like it never had to get done. Nobody told me I had to do it. But I think that there's just a lot of things in like the being able to acknowledge it and before it happens and giving myself the permission before the consequences occur that is really helpful. And I would say that this week with sleep is a great example of saying, like, you're an adult, acknowledging that you have to get up at 4:30 tomorrow morning. So yes, the sun might be out, but like we're going to start turning the power off now. And you could stay up and watch another episode of The Office right now, or you could be an adult and like get this train on the tracks and get going. And I woke up this morning and I felt like $1,000,000. Even at 4:30 in the morning, I was like, hit snooze once, but I was like, whatever, it's fine. Give myself a reprieve. And I think that there's a little bit of that too I'd love to hear a little bit about like that, how you get to that place where like you can see it coming and you can acknowledge it. And I know Loris probably has a little bit to share here too with like the emotional intelligence piece as well.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to hear, Loris, if this overlays with you at all. But as you were talking, Stevie, you reminded me of an exercise that I do with my clients. Whenever I'm working with somebody that wants to deal with their stress, we talk at first about, we talk about their stressors. And then I borrowed this from P&G, you'll love this. And then we red light them for the ones that really set you off. We yellow light them for the ones that are kind of okay. And then we green light them for the ones that are like kind of annoying, but whatever. And the yellow and the green light ones can pile up and they can be bigger, but we kind of divide them into buckets. And then the second thing I do with my clients is I ask them, and this is the yoga teacher in me, when you experience stress, where do you feel it in your body? And this is really important because by and large, we are so in our heads and in the mental space around our heads. Like I told you, the hurricane, it exists outside of our heads too. So many people, and I go to the grocery store sometimes before COVID and I watch this like take place. They just don't even know where they are in space because they're so lost in the stream of thoughts. So what we need to do when we're feeling that stress is to understand where it manifests first, because it all manifests in different parts of our bodies. It's interesting to me. Like it might settle with you in your heart. It might come to me in my shoulders. And it's not even about where you hold the stress. It's kind of like where you feel it occurring. So that's something, it's almost like a little exercise that you could do in a stressful moment that can turn that into an opportunity to be mindful, bring you back into your body. And just by that stepping back into your body, you'll begin to settle down. Because when we feel like we're in our heads, we're breathing high, we don't have enough deep breath, we're outside of ourselves, we're feeling unsafe, we're feeling out of sorts, we're literally like a hot air balloon that's being released. But when we come back into our body, we've got the gravity of the earth. I know that sounds a little bit like hippy dippy, but bear with me. But we're really tied to this body and tied to this planet. And when we remind ourselves and get back in our structure and our form, we start to feel safe again. And that's the key. It's like, I hate to oversimplify it, but what comes down to is like, to minimize the stress in our lives, we have to find ways to make us feel safe, because that's telling our nervous system that everything is fine. You don't have to be on high alert right now. There's no tiger coming to get you. You can just chill out, you know? But because we're existing in this world now where we're constantly overstimulated, there's demands on our time. We've got a global pandemic. It's like we're already setting up into this place of like frenzy and frenetic feeling. And then we're getting that vibe from everyone else too. It's really hard to settle back in and come back into form. And I think that's the exercise I would encourage people to do. And we'll do that later this month too. We'll just kind of evaluate that. But it's like, when I'm experiencing the stress, where is it manifesting in my body? How does that feel? And can I breathe through that? And that's kind of a way you can get back into an embodiment practice. And that begins to, over time, as you flex that muscle, lessen the stress, because you get yourself before you react to it. And that's, again, lengthening that space between stimulus and response.
Is there any linkage? So Loris, I know you talk a lot about like mind, body, heart, and spirit, and like the way, like kind of like where you kind of land on some of these spaces. And I just wonder too if there's like an overlap of some of that work with what Shelly's kind of talking about, and understanding where the deficits are, where you're really strong at, or where your deficit is, and what we think about being centered too.
Well, I think, and Shelly, yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you said. Back up 1 second, Stevie. The one thing I always think of, Shelly, when I think about stress, or when I'm coaching people of stress, I try to get them to the why. Okay, so why are you feeling stressed? You know, there's a lot of good reasons to feel stressed right now, you know, between COVID and politics and social things that are going on, and the unknown, not knowing how Halloween and Christmas is going to be celebrated, not knowing there's so much there's more not known than what's known right now. So then when I think about the why, I had this little drawing once in my office, and it said, when she stopped looking for all of the answers, they lighted gently on her shoulders. So I always think of kind of telling people to hit that pause button and to think, okay, why am I so stressed right now? I mean, every once in a while, I could get my monkey mind into like, you know, a nervy jervish. And it's usually when I'm thinking of making a big decision, you know, some sort of big life change and stuff. And I'll do analysis paralysis. And then I'll say to myself, okay, you can go to bed now. You can write this on a piece of paper. You're going to remember this thought. You can put it in the drawer, and you can go to bed now. But I think sometimes with the stress, if you think about, why am I stressed? You know, and you name the things, and then you acknowledge self-care. Yeah, anybody's stressed during this period of time. Now, what can I control and what can I control about it? And getting a good night's sleep is something you can control if you at least try to do the good things will put you in a stage of good sleep. It might work for you and it might not work for you and stuff. Something that's worked for me a lot lately is listening to Headspace stories at night. I'll do the Headspace app, and it's so funny. They have male voices and female voices. I can only listen to the male voices. It's the deeper tone voices, I guess, that do it for me. And so I might have a whole lot that goes on my mind, but once I put on one of those sleep casts and listen to those, I swear it's like 10 minutes, I'm out, and they're 45 to 60 minutes. And I don't remember ever falling asleep and stuff. But I'll tell you, Stevie, I think sometimes what the stressors, when you do that mind, body, heart, spirit exercise and you think, okay, where am I in all those facets of your life? And then where would I like to be? You can stress yourself out where you say, oh gosh, there's not one of them where I'm going where I really want to be right now. But then you have to think, what's most important to you, and pick one. Pick one. And then when you've mastered the one, then pick another one. Set yourself up for success versus setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that I have been thinking about is to when we think about control of self, I'll use like Erin as an example, because I think this is like a really good, what we were talking about before. Erin maybe had somebody who didn't show up the way that she anticipated them to. And she could be, very upset about that, and it could have thrown off her entire day. Or she could say, okay, this is my reality. This is what I can control. This is like my version of me. I will give, I will be empathetic and give person the benefit of the doubt. And then I'm going to move on, and I'm going to go and I'm going to pick up my toys and go play somewhere else. And there shouldn't be, it's a lesson learned. And I think that it just shows a lot of growth in being able to understand yourself, Erin, enough to kind of like be able to have that moment and kind of like acknowledge yourself of the bigger picture and the vision of where you want to go. And is this moment that pivotal that you're going to allow yourself to like fly off the handle? Has something catastrophic happened? Has somebody perished because of this? No, it's not. And I just find myself as a business owner in this moment, literally like multiple times a day. I mean, it's like my expectations, like I said, will never be met even by me. So it's like just a constant struggle of like not really being, and it will never be enough. I'm insatiable. I think that with any of this too, that we talk about, building these better habits and trying to create this space, knowing that at least if we can control like that in ourselves and understanding like that we set these goals for ourselves, I think that's where we can maybe be successful and like give us a win every day, like that's the part that I'm like been really proud of myself, is I can like, at least I got one thing done today and it was like in service of me. So it's all good.
Yes, and what Shelly was saying too, like I find myself being like, last night I was here till 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. and I was like stressed about it because I needed to get dinner. And I was like driving to Chipotle and I was stressed about like getting it ordered so I didn't have to wait in line. And I was like, okay, you have nothing else to do. It's 8 p.m. Like you have at least, an hour or two before you should be going to bed. Stop being stressed. And I think that in the business world, like obviously I launched in the middle of a pandemic in July, and things were really good because people were like waiting for me to open. And now I'm starting to see a little bit more of a slow, like actually getting in new patients has been a little slower.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it because of the pandemic, and I catch myself like getting upset, but I'm also like, Erin, like, why did you quit your job and start your own business? And thinking of those goals of like my family, like my family is the goal of being there. So, what are the other pivoting to like, all right, business is slow, give it that time, and let's like go and you have other goals in your life, and really your family goal, your personal goals, like those are probably your most important. So, take the time, you have a little extra time on your hands. Okay, then let's make sure we work out this week, or let's actually make some good food or something. So pivoting the goals to, I think is, been where I'm at this week.
Oh, I love that. And I think that there's like you said, to your point, like as we think about the cadence of this month and the way that Shelly kind of built all of this, I think that like understanding where you are right now, I love that, like, oh, that's interesting, like acknowledging it when it comes. But then I think also understanding like is there benefit in understanding to like anticipating, can you anticipate those, like knowing that a trigger for me, trigger for me is I have linked to my email. I know when people join up for a membership, and I know when people like leave a Wise membership. And every time that somebody leaves, it is like gut wrenching. Like, and it will throw off my entire evening. And that is not meant to like make anybody on here, if you need to like not be a member, it's totally fine. But like, honestly. And so I actually had to stop like having it sent to my email, because I feel so responsible for every person that entrusts me with their time. I'm like, oh my God, why? And I'll like follow up with an email no matter what I'm doing. Like, hey, like I'm, is there anything I could do? And like 9 times out of 10, it's honestly because they are like re-looking at their schedule. Like life is just kind of coming the way and they're not able to make events, or they like haven't been able to engage as much as they wanted to. It has nothing to do with like the quality of the work itself. But I think anticipating that and being able to put mechanisms in to know that, okay, it's amidst a pandemic, like what could you do to take advantage of this time to like really perfect? And I know I'm preaching to the choir, Erin, because you're already doing that, right? Like I know that you've been getting some foundational stuff in place, and like, yeah, that's amazing.
And my trigger is like looking at it and like, there's nobody, I have no patient scheduled. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And but really, you look back at like my week and it's like, look how busy that week was. And it didn't, and that's how it always is. So it's really just, it's a roller coaster that and I'm sure you can agree that just like, and it's hard not to get upset. And I haven't really let myself get upset, but just like being like, oh, it's COVID. Like, and because it really kind of is, because Alex and I are very social people. So like, I would be at, the gym talking, I would be out at happy hours. I'd be like, and so it's just one of those things that I try to keep, oh, this is happening, that I'm getting upset because of COVID. But then I list off my, like, the greatest thing I ever did was listen to like a gratitude podcast. And it was like, so I'm like, all right, let's count to 10. We are grateful for COVID because we have a puppy now, our deck's done, and just like list it off. And there's a lot of things that came out of COVID, like even us virtually talking on like we wouldn't be together on a Wednesday afternoon if it wasn't for COVID. So like things like that, I just try to, there's so much that has happened because of COVID, and we got to focus on that good instead of the things that aren't happening.
I love that. I think that's great. And I know that Shelly's going to take us through. So all next week is really around recharge. The following week is about relaxation. And then we're getting into like this reconnection space. And I think that as we go through the cadence of all of these exercises, that's one thing that having the guide of being able to create the space on Sundays is all about journaling. And Erin, you've like given me a reminder. Like I loved when we did the 30 days of gratitude challenge with Rachel DeRochers, because it gave me a prompt every day to kind of do that. And I've definitely fallen off of that moment. And so I think that there's also a way for me to kind of bring that back into this, creating that space and bringing that, because gratitude for me, being an insatiable human, gratitude is very important for me because I sometimes lose sight of like what I have. And I acknowledge that. So I don't know. I know that Brenda and Erin, I know you're probably just listening, and welcome. I hope you guys are doing well. If you have anything to share, you can come off of mute. But I hope that today was really just about like really trying to understand what this Break 30 is all about as we're moving into this new thing. We're testing it out, seeing how it goes, and we'll go from there.
This is Brenda. I was just gonna build on, I have 2 teenagers, and some of this that we've talked about, I want to actually bring to them, because sleep is something that they've been struggling with now that summer has shifted to school. And I've been making purposely over the summer, I've been like going to bed purposely just early, just for myself to get rejuvenated and stuff. So I'm actually going to take some of these learnings and talk to them about it, because I think it's all really interesting. And I think in the end it will help them as they kind of transition back to school.
Love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Erin, good luck with your crazy day. I know she just popped in on this, and Brenda, I do think that that's something too. I hope you find fulfilling as a mom, being able to take some of these practices. I know that I'm trying to do, I did realize that maybe I'm not so bad about it. Lincoln and I are doing every night before we go to bed, saying one good thing that happened every day. So that's something.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, because like I said, I just, his yesterday was the grasshopper that we found. Like teaching him letters with slime outside. And I do think it's never anything like grandiose. It's always like the grasshopper, like that I got to like see up close. That was super cool. I'm like, okay, yeah. Like it's about, right? It's about the small stuff. So
Right.
Well, awesome. Well, I don't know if you guys, I think that today, like I said, we were just going to do a rundown. Coming up, we've got a really kind of incredible, crazy September for you guys. We have something literally happening every day, thanks to the partnership with Shelly and Crunchmaster. So that's incredibly exciting. We have a couple of really big announcements that are going to be coming your way. So make sure that you guys are staying tuned for that. I think that some of the exciting moments that I'm really looking forward to over the course of the next week we are going to do every other week on an Instagram live. If you guys are around at 9 a.m. Eastern time, just to on Wednesdays, to just try to like pop in and check in. And if somebody wants to, I'm going to leave it open-ended and not try to schedule anybody. But just space for candid conversations. And so I think that being able to have this space to just check in on ourselves and each other, just hopping on, I would love for members to go live with me and just like request access, and I can show you guys how to do that if you'd like. If you've got something you want to talk about or something you feel like would be really relevant, definitely let me know, because I don't claim to be the expert in everything, but I've created the platform for anybody to be able to share. So every other Wednesday will be Wise Women Wednesdays at noon Eastern time. Every other Wednesday will be an Instagram live at 9 a.m. Where we'll also have different events happening. We've got a couple of member events, a beauty care. This whole month is about the glow up. So you can tell that Fee, one of our newest members of the team, is leading this because she is like very big into like orchestrating and curating experiences. And so the program is about a glow up, and about how we think about really investing in ourselves so we can glow from the inside out. And I think being able to do that, having conversations about generational differences and awareness, and being able to really like look inside of ourselves and understanding how we relate to people from that weren't born in the same generation and what they're feeling, and how we use that in our careers to advance ourselves. We are going to be doing a series of different events with Morgan Angelique Owens. She was on this Wise Women Wednesdays a month ago, and she's going to be doing a big event for us, elaborating on what she was talking about at the end of the month. So very excited. We've got a lot of like power packed September, but thank you guys so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to connecting with you guys, as we move forward in the month. And I'm going to go ahead and leave this going, because I know Erin wanted to really quickly connect with Shelly at the end of this. Okay. All right, everybody, have a good day. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Stevie.
Thanks.